Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. And I've put together the top 7 key market drivers I look at when analyzing a real estate market. Go to sethferguson.org to download your free copy. Our guest today has 12 years of experience in real estate, is invested in 567 units, and has purchased, rehabbed, and sold over 100 single-family homes. Jimmy Edwards is the owner of the Hi5 Group. Jimmy, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Seth. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, really looking forward to this because you've got experience in a couple different asset classes, so I'm sure we're going to have some really good stuff for the listeners. So let's get started and talk about your real estate goals right now. Where do you want to go with real estate?
Multifamily has really been my latest focus. It started about 2 years ago, but really transitioned into multifamily 100%. Late 18 and 2019. Commercial real estate, what kind of drove me to it was forced appreciation, but B, right now there's a lot of tax benefits available when investing in that asset class.
Yeah. So, at what point did you really, what was the indicator or what was the driving force between you saying, hey, listen, now I have to transition my business into multifamily?
It was multifaceted. I mean, I've been through a long road. Started as a realtor. I'm a retired loan officer. Probably written 1,000 loans. In 2013, started flipping houses full time. We were scaling pretty well. And I kind of got to the point where I said, hey, I want to scale my business, and which direction do I want to go? Am I going to flip more houses? Am I going to wholesale more deals? Am I going to go into bigger projects? Am I going to do new construction? And then I discovered multifamily, B and C class, value add. And there was one deal kind of towards that really, once I'd found multifamily, that as we were flipping houses, we lost a little bit of money, and the light bulb kind of went off and said, hey, you can flip multifamily apartment buildings while they're cash flowing, whereas single family houses, if something happens, you're stuck holding the note. So that was kind of a catalyst.
Yeah. And were you doing your single family homes with investors, or was it all with your own funds?
A little bit of both. I was getting bank financing. I formed a relationship with a local bank, and they would write all my notes. I think I had 15% down payment of purchase plus rehab. And I would essentially establish, a second note with different investors to fund that down payment. Yeah. And so, depending how many houses we had, if we had 10 houses going at once, it'd probably be a mix of my funds and investors' funds. But when I really got started, it was mostly just my funds until I built up more funds to do more houses. And then, eventually you run out of funds and say, hey, I need more capital. So a little bit of both.
Yeah. And, getting started is always the hardest thing. Lots of people contact me and say, hey, listen, I'm not rich. How do I get started in real estate? So, like you alluded to, you started off with your own funds at the start. How did you get the grind going? Did you have limited resources right at the very beginning?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually started in 2013, and it was kind of by accident. I mean, I'd always wanted to flip houses, but I was working as a loan officer and doing really well. And then out of the blue, they closed my branch down. And so, I was a top performer, consistently in the top 5 within, the company. And so it kind of just, it made me realize, hey, man, you can be a top producer, but your fate's in someone else's hands. Yeah. So, being a top producer, suddenly when they closed my branch down, I realized that, my fate was in someone else's hands. Even though I was generating my own income, closing my own deals, working my own hours. So I'd saved up some money. I'd bought my house. It was a foreclosure. I bought it in 2011, got a rehab loan, renovated it, refinanced out of that construction loan. So it was a good learning experience. And I went in and I had a couple job interviews as a loan officer. The direction I was headed, either way, I needed to build my own book of business, right? And so I kind of just decided, hey, I'm going to go in a different direction. I've always wanted to invest in real estate. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad back in 2005. So the ideas were there, and I'd been saving up money to take action. And finally, something forced me into that. I got, a little severance. I don't know, maybe it was $30,000. I had invested in Apple at the time. I was pushing all my money into Apple, and then I don't know, 3 or 4 months before they closed my branch, Steve Jobs died. So $100,000 in Apple went down to $40,000 in Apple. And so I realized that I was not going to do that again. So I cashed out the 40 grand. I think I had another 30 in a severance, and I had $70,000. And so I went and bought a $60,000 house, put 10 grand into it, sold it for 90, and said, hey, I can make this work. So, that was kind of how that got started.
Yeah. And so what did you have to change with the way you thought about real estate to make that change from single families to now to multifamilies? Because they're two different animals.
They're two different animals. So we'd flipped a lot of houses. I think in 2016, we probably did 50 flips at kind of the height. At one point we had 12 going, and it was just me and one other partner. So I think around the time I had discovered multifamily, it kind of, it blew my mind, right? I learned about forced appreciation. I learned, all these things that, were just incredible to me. And we had a house, and we ran ARV, and, we were comfortable with all the numbers. We thought it was a great deal. We went in, rehab went over budget, pretty common, right? Maybe we're 5-10 grand over budget, some unexpected things. And then kind of we listed the house for sale, and like 7 or 8 other flips came on the market the same week. So now all of a sudden the neighborhood's saturated, right? And so everybody's competing for the same buyers. People are taking less than list price, right? Everyone's trying to get their deal sold. So our house ended up sitting on the market for 4 or 5 months, eating up our profit. And then because it'd been on the market for, 4 or 5 months, people were lowballing us. So finally we took a lowball offer. The inspection went well, but, because we didn't have any leverage, they, kicked us in our shins. So we ended up, getting out of that deal. And I think we, lost about 20 grand. At the grand scheme of things, if we, if we had a $500,000 a year, it only knocked it down to 480, right? So not like a huge hit for the company, but it really just kind of made me realize, like, if there are unexpected circumstances, really the big portion of the profit that got eaten up was holding costs. So, going into multifamily, right, if you're buying a cash flowing asset, even if you're repositioning it and you do it correctly, you should, be cash flowing while you're improving the deal. So that was really kind of the turning point. I mean, we'll still flip a house here and there, if the numbers are right. But, I've learned, it's just as easy to close 3 multifamily deals a year, for $4 or $5 million than it is to close 20 or 30 small deals. So it's like, 4 closings instead of, 30 or 40, it just really made more sense.
Yeah. And what was it like learning the new terminology, the new valuation methods? Because multifamily, you're on the income approach. How did you find that process?
I loved it. I've always been, interested in learning. I get excited. There's parts of me that, and kind of looking back at my career, every time I made a move was, I felt like I needed to learn more, right? So, what's the next step? What's going to keep me interested? And so, the multifamily, learning about it was really exciting. It was basically, the same thing we were doing, just on a bigger scale, a little bit more complex. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every part of it.
Yeah. And what would you say is the biggest challenge right now you are experiencing in your business?
Probably deal flow,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, right, you need deals and capital. So I mean, but look, that's nothing new, right? I mean, that's been the same thing in the past 5 or 6 years in my other business. So, finding deals that make sense. I mean, they're out there. You just have to, turn over a lot of rocks. I mean, other than that, we've got a good team. I mean, I think having a good team in place is crucial. And you still take baby steps, right? You may do some smaller assets and some, C class, maybe you want to move up to B class, but, I mean, those are just natural, growing pains.
Yeah. And what sort of systems and rituals have you developed that have helped make your business successful thus far?
Really, at the end of the day, it's relationships. And so, I talked about earlier, really looking back at other parts of my career that have, kind of prepared me for today. And, I started off in sales, and that was exciting to me. And really what I've learned through, being a salesman is, relationships, right? I mean, at the end of the day, my role is relationships. If I'm in acquisitions, my role is relationships. If I'm a capital raiser, I mean, my role is relationships. So, for me, is really just, understanding and also being self-aware, right? If I'm really tired, I probably need to go recharge because, if I'm too tired to talk to someone, what kind of vibe is that going to put off, right? I'm not going to be myself. They're going to think I'm a weirdo. So really just, becoming self-aware to take a break and say, hey, if you're feeling like you need to shut down, like that's not doing anyone good, like go take a rest, and then get back there and feel 110%. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you had mentioned that at one point you had like 12 flips going on at one time. Do you think having that sort of action has prepared you for the multifamily space?
Definitely. I mean, you're always putting out fires. You're always dealing. I mean, you're always dealing with contractors or tenants, or and now kind of in multifamily, right? I mean, there's a sub layer. Your property management company and your property manager is dealing with these things, but I think it's good to understand as an operator, the challenges that, your property manager is dealing with, right? So you can be, maybe more sympathetic or more empathetic to the challenges that they're having, while still addressing, hey, here's what we need to focus on or realign with, but really, being able to know where they're coming from,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And out of all the deals that you've done, is there one that stands out as a Keystone deal that made a big impact on your business?
I would, we talked a little bit, there's two. One we talked about earlier, that made, a huge mindset shift. And then really the first deal that we did, I plugged into multifamily. I think I still had some either self-limiting beliefs or, maybe a mixture of self-limiting beliefs and still being a solopreneur, not understanding putting a team together, for a multifamily deal, right? I mean, you need several components. So I learned about multifamily. I said, hey, I can do this, but, I'm going to look for a 20 unit deal. I wouldn't change any of this. I mean, I'm extremely excited and happy with the path, and, but we started looking for a 20-unit deal, and, I got plugged in with a mentor and underwrote it. And, I was going to, just to get the deal, we were going to self-manage it. And, we go to the lender. I've done 100 flips. I'm a real estate broker. I've got self-managed my rental portfolio. We go to the lender, and the lender says, this is great, but what multifamily experience do you have? I don't have any. But here's what I've done. Well, I don't care about that. So, and then not only that, they said, hey, you need to find someone that has experience. You need to find a teammate. And not only that, but you need to have third-party management. So we said, okay, so re-underwrote the deal, didn't work with third-party management, passed on it. But ultimately, all of those things that happened were kind of a blessing, right? I mean, had we managed it ourselves, we wouldn't have locked up the next 100-unit deal and the next 100-unit deal. We would have been too busy self-managing this project to be able to focus on acquisitions.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, I mean, we ended up, because we were looking for these little deals, one of our contacts and a dear friend of ours that owns, several 100-unit properties, had found a small 16-unit deal, and came to us and said, hey, I know you guys are looking to get on a small deal to build your resume. I've got this deal. It needs a lot of CapEx. I don't really want to do all the work, but y'all have the rehab experience. Let's team up. And so, had we not have been looking for the first deal, we wouldn't have fallen into that one. And then this deal, now that it's on our resume and we've got a good team, allowed us to buy the next 100-unit deal together. And so it's just, it's kind of funny how things tend to work out. But, I've always been 10% or 110%. And so that was really when I said, hey, multifamily is what I want to do. So, I really needed to go all in. And going all in was what allowed me to scale that business, quicker.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point, the difference between the solopreneur and then building a team. And I think a lot of beginner real estate investors, they try and do it themselves because they think of it as their baby.
Right.
Can you give us some tips on, how to build a team and how you think about it and how to leverage everybody's strengths?
Sure. So when I was doing single family, I'd broken the chains, right? I was no longer working for somebody. I was on my own. I was, so proud that I'd created an LLC and a website, and, I had business cards, and, so it was definitely my baby. And, I was doing it, I had some people, some investors, and, I first started with a mentor, and then I broke off on my own. And then I got to the point where I couldn't do it all myself, and I needed some help. So I found a partner that had strengths in construction management, and which was really the part that was, taking a lot of my time was, managing contractors and, the day-to-day operations in the weeds, to where, I would lock up 4 or 5 deals, rehab those deals, and not be spending any time in acquisitions. So, now I'd sell those deals and now I'd have to start over. So I partnered up with someone that had a background in construction management and real estate. And so it took us a little while to figure out our roles, but we really got to the point where she was doing the construction management and I was doing acquisitions. And it allowed us both to focus on, our skill set and do more deals together, right? So, it got to the point where, we were doing more deals together than I was doing alone, right? So, 1 + 1 now equals 3. And so that was pretty eye-opening. And so, we did that for a while, and then decided, hey, together, let's scale, found multifamily. And we really carried those same roles into multifamily. And then we added some other partners that, are doing, have operations backgrounds and, maybe more financial backgrounds and, some asset management. So, adding, as you go bigger into bigger businesses, adding, the right people or partnering with the right people in order to, have a streamlined goal.
Yeah. And I liked how you said, you guys eventually focused on, you were doing acquisition, she was doing construction management. Because one of the things I find is where partnerships go off the rails is where you don't have a clear lane and everybody's crisscrossing and getting in each other's way.
Right.
So like having those defined roles and exactly what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely helps because then you can, then you're not, especially having good partners, knowing that I'm not going to miss anything because they're focused on these things, which relieves some stress on my end, which allows me to continue to go after what I'm good at,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So how has getting into real estate changed and impacted your life so far?
Freedom. I mean, really, really, really freedom. I think back to a lot of the jobs that I have, and I really always performed better. Not as even when I was in sales, or mortgages, whenever I had, a manager, a micromanager. I mean, I always did really poor, right? I've always been a go-getter. I've always, wanted more. So, the freedom of building a business myself, really has allowed a lot of personal growth. I think I've grown as a human. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're all looking for freedom and freedom is different for everyone. And, for me, it's kind of being able to control my own destiny. And because I want, a lot, I'm able to go get that without someone, holding me back. So, really just, the freedom to create my own path, has been that.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the beginning that you may have had, you may have been limiting yourself with your limiting beliefs. How did you approach that and how did you break through so you could get through that plateau?
I think it comes back to relationships, surrounding myself with people that have been where I want to go and maybe have broken through before me. So, just really, right. If you surround yourself with 10 millionaires, I mean, chances are you're going to become a millionaire. If you're hanging out with a bunch of, unsuccessful people or a bunch of, people that go to the bar every night, I mean, chances are you're going to end up going to the bar every night. Right. So, really just understanding that, hey, it's okay to seek new relationships. It doesn't make you, a bad person. It just means that, you're searching for growth and searching for more and really finding, groups, I mean, there's, and I found that in multifamily. I found that, everyone in the multifamily space was, had an abundant mentality, right? And so they want to give back and they want to help. And, if you're having, struggles, like, hey, look, here's, through friends and relationships, almost just having, mentor, relationships with your friends, right? Like here's how I break through that. So for me, it was really just putting myself in a group of people, that showed me, hey, I'm surrounded by 27 people and they've all done this and they all started where I did. So, if why not me?
Yeah.
So it was really helpful.
Yeah. And, like you alluded to, getting that first deal done is the hardest part.
Right.
Because you have to prove to yourself that you can do it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That was huge, and like you said, like, hey, and then everyone that I would talk to would say, man, it's actually easier to do 100-unit deal than it is a 16-unit deal. Here's why, and it's not that much more expensive. The loan's the same. Just go do it. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we have guests on the show that will swear that $100 million deal is easier than buying a single family house.
I don't doubt that. I would agree for sure.
Yeah. So let's look ahead 10 years from now. So a decade. Where do you see yourself going with your business in 10 years?
The sky's the limit, really. I think that over the next couple years, I'd like to, have a couple thousand units on my resume. The end game is passive income, right? The freedom to do whatever you want. And I think that, I'll probably never stop, working. But, is it really work if you're having fun? And maybe you do less of the things that you don't want to do, and a lot more of the things that you do enjoy doing. So, I think it's one of those things that, once you create momentum, the sky's really the limit. I mean, could we own, 10,000 doors in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, it's entirely possible. And what does that allow you to do? And whether that's spending time with your family or going on vacations or, giving back to the community. I mean, there's so many things that you can unlock, once you get to, pure freedom.
Yeah, for sure. So Jimmy, if somebody's looking to reach out, learn more about you, where can they find you online?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's Hi5 Multifamily. Spelled out just like it sounds, HIGHFIVE, multifamily.com.
Perfect. And I have to ask, where'd you come up with that name?
No, man, it's a long story. We were a really, really dear friend of mine. We went to high school together, and we were at a concert. I don't know, probably 15 years ago. And after the show, everyone was leaving, and we were giving people high fives, and we always kind of said high fives make you feel good. So he ended up starting, a clothing line and, some other threads. And when I went into real estate, I started the Hi5 group, and then I had Hi5 house buyers, and then Hi5 multifamily. So, it's just kind of, it really feels good, and everybody always, can appreciate it and have a smile. And I think it's something that people remember.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Well, Jimmy, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing those great tips with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Seth. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.